Welcome. I'm science fiction and fantasy author James Van Pelt. I'm going to be reading today from my novel Summer of the Apocalypse. The book is set up in two sections. One describes a plague that starts in America in about 1990 and kills most of the world. The second part of the book takes place 60 years later, following the same character as he makes his way through a very different existence, a very different America than he knew when he was a boy. The chapters alternate, so we get to see him both as a 15-year-old trying to make his way through a world that's changing, and as a 60-year-old who's trying to deal with that changed world. I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 1. It won't be the whole chapter. This chapter is called Sad News. Eric wished he could enjoy the warm August sun that penetrated deep into his old muscles, but he could hear Dodge and Rabbit talking in front of his house, and he knew the two children came to hear about the gone times. Almost no one else visited. They didn't care to listen to his stories, but the children liked to talk about the old days, and their company was appreciated. Lately, he'd been restive. He enjoyed sunsets less. He took longer and longer walks, always toward the foothills, sometimes getting home after nightfall. People in the village didn't do this. Fear of wild animals kept them indoors after dark, but Eric couldn't shake the habit and the notion that the night was safe for man. He felt the urge to travel again, to see new places one more time before illness or just plain age forced him to stay home. This afternoon, though, stretched out on a hammock with the late spring sun so pleasant, a breeze blowing cool off the mountains and a glass of pungent herb tea beside him, he'd rather drift into a doze. "Are you sleeping, Grandfather?" Dodge, a tall, skinny 10-year-old with dark hair neatly cut into bangs above his eyebrows, pushed the creaky gate open. Rabbit, his sullen 12-year-old friend whose face bore heavy scars from wild dog bites suffered when he was 5, followed. "Why bother an old man?" said Eric. He pointed at the pitcher and the boys poured themselves tea. "Don't you have productive things to do? Maybe you could pull weeds for me." Dodge emptied his drink with one gulp. Rabbit retreated to the shade of the grapevines and sat cross-legged on the grass. His broad shoulders and thick chest hinted at the bulk of the man he might become. "You tell him," said Rabbit. "What?" Eric swung his feet off the hammock and sat up. His back twinged and he grimaced. Beyond the fence that encircled his vegetable garden, the dusty road was empty all the way to the cottonwoods that lined the river. Most people napped during the heat. Later, when the sun moved closer to the mountains, horse-drawn carts would pass occasionally, but generally life in Littleton was slow in August. People tended their gardens. Field workers walked past his house at dusk. Some would wave, but most ignored him. He was just a crotchety old man who not only wouldn't let go of the gone times, but who also upset the town meetings with his criticisms. "What news do you have?" Eric asked. Dodge said, "Dad wants to see you. Don't tell him I come out here all the time, okay? Dad says family gatherings are bad enough. I don't need you coming home with his garbage. But I think he's stupid." Eric sighed. This was a common gambit of Dodge's to not answer questions. It was a family trait. "Your father isn't stupid. When you're 30, you'll wish you'd listen to him more now." Dodge looked longingly at the pitcher. Eric nodded and the boy filled his glass again. "You don't have a dad to make you do chores or go to school. Look for cloth today, Dodge," he says, or "find some tools for trade." You think that he doesn't want me to have any fun. Besides, there isn't anything to find here anymore. All the easy pickings are gone, not like when you were a kid. We brought something for you, though. Dodge dug into his backpack and removed a thick book. He handed it to Eric. "I know you don't have this one." Eric turned the volume over. It was an anthology called Major American Authors. He opened the cover. The pages were slightly wrinkled, as if the book had been exposed to moist air at one time. But other than that, it seemed in good shape. He read the ending lines of a quote from Nathaniel Ames' Almanac, 1758. "O ye unborn inhabitants of America, should this page escape its destined conflagration at the year's end, and these alphabetical letters remain legible when your eyes behold the sun after he has rolled the seasons round for 2 or 3 centuries more, you will know that in Anno Domini 1758 we dreamed of your times." "I doubt it," Eric thought. He frowned. "You shouldn't be scavenging. That's work for men who know what they're doing." Dodge said, "We can get places they can't. They're too big. Rabbit found the case of knives last year. The glass wasn't even broken on the front. We don't touch anything we're not supposed to. We're not kids, you know. The case of knives had been big news the summer before. Eric used it as part of an argument to the city council. When was the last time someone got good stuff? What do you think, Rabbit? Said Dodge. Rabbit looked into his tea. His hair hung over his eyes. The scars puckered the right side of his face, and he seldom met Eric's gaze, even though he'd been coming to his house for years. Rabbit tilted his head back and stared into the vines. Eric noticed he kept the good side of his face turned toward them. He said, "The knives, I guess. Camaro's mom found some canned goods last week, but they were all bad. No labels and swelled up. Doc Renke says we shouldn't eat anything from cans anyway, swelled or not." Eric laughed silently at the mention of Camaro. Lots of children born in the last 20 years or so had been named after automobiles. There was Dodge, of course, and Rabbit, but he also knew a red-headed girl named Blazer, a pair of twins, Plymouth and Neon, and the Miller's son, Mercedes. None of these children had ever seen a working automobile. The last one Eric remembered was a Volkswagen Bug that drove by his house 25 years ago. That was when the Bowles Avenue Bridge repair still stood. The cars were gone, but the names lived on. As I said, that's part of Chapter 1 and how I introduce the novel. It's 21 chapters long. I will provide information about the book in the comments section below and in the title credits or ending credits. Thank you very much. I hope that you have a good day. It'll probably sound odd when people look at this video, say a year or 2 years or 10 years from now, if it's still around, but make sure you wash your hands. Be safe. Thank you.